குழந்தைக்குன்னா ரொம்ப மறந்து யாருக்குனாலும் குழந்தைக்குன்னா ரொம்பவே மறந்துடுவாங்க ஒழிஞ்சு விட்டு. இதுக்கெல்லாம் மெடிசன் கூட்டியது வீட்டுக்கு வந்து என்ன நடந்ததுன்னு கேள்வி வீட்டுக்கு வந்தா நான் பார்த்தேன் சோகமா படிச்சுட்டே இருக்கோம். நான் வந்ததுமே தெரிஞ்சதுமே நான் யாருக்கும் வந்து தெரிஞ்சதுமே எழுதிட்டு கொடுக்குன்னு போயிட்டு அந்த பொண்ணு கீழே கொடுத்த காரில் அவன் ஜாலியா வெளில போறான். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் மணிக்கு மேல இன்னைக்கு
A happy afternoon to everybody present here. We will begin. Happy afternoon to everybody present here. We will begin the session in another few minutes. My humble pranams and a happy afternoon to one and all present here. On behalf of IHMA Chennai chapter, myself, Dr. B. Sneha, take immense pleasure in welcoming back you all to the Lockdown Learning webinar series. I welcome all our senior doctors and National Working Committee members, Dr. Ravindran sir, Dr. Joe Matthews sir, Dr. Anantharaman sir, and Dr. Arulvanan sir. I also welcome Dr. Peter Martin sir, President IHMA Tamil Nadu State Chapter, and Dr. Satyamurthy sir, General Secretary IHMA Tamil Nadu State Chapter, and all other state and district members of IHMA. To equip ourselves well on homeopathy, IHMA Chennai chapter has come up with a series of webinars to upgrade ourselves in all possible aspects so that we can handle cases in a better way. Today is our second webinar of the Lockdown Learning webinar series. It is always good to practice gratitude. So, before starting the session, let us all remember and thank our master, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, for giving us this wonderful system of medicine in serving mankind. We would like to convey our deep condolences to Dr. N. Subramaniam sir, founder, principal of Dr. Hahnemann Homeopathic Medical College, Rajapuram, who had passed away recently, adding on his service to this noble profession. Now, I humbly request Dr. Joe Matthews sir, National Secretary, Administration, to say a few words about this event and IHMA.
Thank you. I'm very proud to be here in the Zoom platform. And I'm proud to be a member of IHMA, and especially I'm also a member of the Chennai chapter. The Chennai chapter executives, the new young doctors, are doing a wonderful job. And during this COVID lockdown period, what best otherwise. So they very aptly named this lockdown learning. And I'm sure all of you will, all those who are present here, it will be uh, a good amount of learning. And I'm sure all your Sundays will be invested productively in learning, and it'll be helpful for you in your daily practice. Indian Homeopathic Medical Association is a pioneer organization and for qualified homeopaths, and it's having its chapters and branches all over India, and also it's upcoming like in many states and also in the UAE. And the main objective of this association is to promote and uplift the quality of homeopathy and its practitioners. As you all know, we've been conducting a lot of CME programs, a lot of medical camps, awareness programs, preventive camps, and during this COVID times also, we've distributed many preventives, and of late, we've been planning to also go for treatment, and all those modalities are being worked out. And shortly, I think you know that, as an association, we are coming up with all this kind of whatever help we can do to the public, and awareness of mainly to promote homeopathy. So that is in the limelight. And of late, IHMA has come out with a new project called SSS, Triple S program, Social Security Scheme. That is very good for the doctors. And I think all the life members will be knowing this. And if not, I think you should know it. So it's a very useful scheme for all the doctors, which you can take it up. And I don't want to keep prolonging, because the session is more important for you. Today's faculty, Dr. Vinod Joseph, my good friend of mine, is going to handle the topic homeopathic remedy differential in pediatrics, a very interesting topic. Dr. Vinod is a very good teacher. As far as I know, he's a classical prescriber, and he's a student of Dr. Vitolka's, and very, very beautifully named today's topic, differentiation of the remedies. I think he's very good in doing that. And he is not new to our Chennai people, Chennai doctors, because I think he has already been a faculty of one of our seminars here. And I'm sure you'll be happy listening and learning a lot from him. And on this occasion, I'm happy to inaugurate this session, and happy learning to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, without any further delay, let us get into our session. I feel enthusiastic to introduce our speaker of the day, Dr. Vinod Joseph, sir, Director and Chief Consultant at Dr. Vinod Homeopathic Healthcare and Academy for Classical Homeopathy, Kakanad, Kochi. He's also coordinator of e-learning course from International Academy for Classical Homeopathy, Alonissos, Greece. He's a trained under Professor George Vitolkas at IACH, Alonissos, Greece. He's a faculty, Indian Homeopathic Medical Association, Senior Consultant at B.H.M.S, Kochi. He's going to guide us with homeopathic remedy differential in pediatrics. Participants are requested to post their queries in the chat box, which will be answered by our honorable speaker by the end of the session. I repeat, participants are requested to post their queries in the chat box, which will be answered by our honorable speaker at the end of this session. Now, I humbly request Dr. Vinod Joseph, sir, to commence this session. Please, sir.
Hello. Is it okay for you?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Okay. Hi, sir. All respected senior doctors of IHMA Chennai, Dr. Arilvanan, Dr. Joe, Dr. Ravindran, Dr. Anantaraman, Dr. Peter, and Dr. Rekha. I can see many familiar faces here, and I'm so glad to be among you. It's actually a great privilege extended to me by the IHMA Chennai. During these hard times of COVID, actually we are going to discuss something lighter, I think, which is actually our domain of interest. Much more comfortable we are with children. They feel lighter among children, and as practicing homeopaths, we are much more comfortable with pediatric cases also. So all of you, most of you, very experienced doctors who are very well versed in pediatric cases. Whatever little knowledge I would like to share here is purely because, purely from my experience, knowledge, and learning. So it might be slightly different in your viewpoints, but I would like to share whatever I know. Okay, so today's actual discussion topic is about the discussion regarding children, right? The finer shades of pediatric remedies. So going to actual differentiation, before going to actual differentiation, as practicing homeopaths, we all know what makes an ideal homeopathic prescription, right? An ideal homeopathic prescription in context with homeopathic aspect, the prescription that we all make should address, or the remedy selected should address the totality of the symptoms in that case, right? We all know what is totality. It is all together, the sum total of all symptoms that can be logically combined to arrive at a whole, which can represent the case as a whole, right? And as per this description, our prescription should contain the totality. That means the logical combination of symptoms and the psychological essence, if it is there. That means the mental emotional makeup of the case before us, if present. And thirdly, the keynotes of the remedy, right? There are keynotes of each and every remedy is described in our Materia Medica. And if the prescription contains enough number of keynotes, and if that remedy has a peculiar etiology described, and if your prescription contains that particular etiology or addresses that particular etiology, we are actually heading towards the right direction. And of course, the most important, or not the least important, it should cover up the pathology in the case, right? So these are the different aspects, or these are the factors that actually makes an ideal prescription. That means if all these headings are there in your prescription, or it covers the prescription that you make, that means it is for sure going to work. That means this is the ideal scenario. So this is the ideal scenario, as you know. So let us come across an example to make this clear. A case of recurrent tonsillitis with swelling of tonsils in a 4-year-old baby. So this is a case of tonsillitis, which is a recurrent nature, with swelling of tonsils in a 4-year-old baby, with a hot, sweaty head, especially at night, hot body, averse to covering, craving for accent sweet, history of delayed dentition is there. And this is an obstinate child, very intelligent, but he is little slow to pick up things, greatly fearful to be alone or in dark, and even insects. So this, please go through this symptomatology described. So I know that the remedy is pretty clear for you also, right? The remedy is calcarea carbonica. It's very easy. Why it is easy? It is just made easy for you because all the symptoms described here is of calcarea carbonica. and the remedy covers the psychological essence in this case. That means little slow to pick up things. That means slowish. This character is of Calcarea carbonica. And the child is obstinate, intelligent, but little slow to pick up with lot and lot of fears. Calcarea carbonica has lot and lot of fears. So we have got a totality which addresses the most of the symptoms here, and it is addressing the psychological makeup of the case, and it has lot of keynotes of the remedy. A hot, sweaty head, especially during sleep, wetting the pillow around, and the child is hot. This might be a little confusing for some of you, but it is not. It should not be. Most of the children below the age of 4 or 5 are generally hot. We learn Calcarea carbonica as generally chilly, but children in general are hot. And there is a great craving for eggs and sweets. There is a delayed dentition, and all these keynotes are directing towards Calcarea carbonica. So we have a totality of symptom which is pointing towards Calcarea carbonica. We have the psychological essence pointing towards Calcarea carbonica. We have a lot of keynotes that is pointing towards Calcarea carbonica. Unfortunately, there is no such etiology described, so we have not added to that. And the pathology. What is the pathology of Calcarea? Calcarea is a great granular remedy, right? So all these aspects actually points towards Calcarea carbonica. So these are the type of cases which are very simple ones, are rather simple cases or easy cases in homeopathy. What makes an actual homeopathic prescription simple? When all the symptoms are represented well, with enough keynotes, with the psychological essence is clear, then we can say that that particular case is going to be a simple case or an easy case for a homeopathic prescription. And what makes it difficult? When actually the symptoms are not becoming clearer for us to prescribe, or we become confused. Let us go to the example number 2. Again, a case of recurrent tonsillitis with swelling of tonsils in a 9-year-old boy. Catches cold very easily, which leads to stuffy nose, headaches, and throat infection. I am giving examples in the practical aspect. So these type of cases usually come to one of us, right? So this child is thirsty but prefers cold drinks. Delayed dentition and history of sty is there. Desire for milk is 3+, salt is there, egg desire is there for 2 marks, profuse sweat in sleep is there, obstinate yet yielding boy, and chilly. So going through this symptomatology, most of you might have got a little confused, right? There are possibilities of more than one remedy. Of course, the sweaty head, the profuse sweat, desire for eggs, of course, the delayed dentition. Again, Calcarea carbonica is a possibility. Okay, the desire for milk, which is very strong here, and if the child is a restless one, then we can think about a rustox. The desire for milk, which is very strong here, tendency to catch cold very easily is there, and so there is a possibility of a tuberculinum. The chilliness of the child, and again, being chilly, the child prefers to have cold drinks with delayed dentition, with the tonsillitis pathology. We can think about silica also. So this is another case. As age advances, this is one thing I would want to make it clear. What is the advantage that we are getting in pediatric cases, especially in children below 5 or 4 years of age. And as the age advances, the symptomatology becomes more and more unclear. Unclear for us means we will get symptoms of different remedies. Out of that, we have to arrive at the first prescription with great precision. So coming to example number 3, there is another symptom mentioned here, teeth grinding in sleep. Of course, we know those remedies which have teeth grinding, right? Cinna is there, tuberculinum is there, basilinum is there, belladonna is there. Okay, so this second example is a bit more confusing. So this again has some pathologies, some keynotes of some remedies, but different remedies, not a single remedy, but different remedies. The pathology, of course, points towards different remedies. Of course, the disadvantage of prescribing according to the pathology is that the same pathology we can address with n number of remedies. Tonsillitis it's a huge rubric, or we have hundreds of medicine to address tonsillitis. So coming to example number 3, this is again a case of recurrent throat infection in a 15-year-old boy. He also has allergic rhinitis. He is sensitive to cold and he is sensitive to draft. That means cold air. Of course, there is profuse perspiration on exertion. Offensive sweat, foot sweat too, that stinges. That means offensive foot sweat. There is grinding of teeth in sleep, which is 3+. Desire for salt is there, which is 3+. Desire for milk is there. Desire for meat, that is especially pork, is there, very marked. And he sleeps very late. And the character is shy, introverted, interested in physical activities. He's aggressive, like bike riding, cycling, dancing, etc. So going through this symptomatology, again, we feel a little bit more confused because we could get through many remedies here, right? Calcarea carbonica, silica, tuberculinum, natrum muriaticum, medorinum. Hope it is all of you can get through these type of symptomatologies with these remedies I have mentioned. So I just wanted to emphasize what advantage we have in pediatric cases, or as homeopaths, why we are much comfortable dealing with pediatric cases, or if I add more, why as homeopaths we are more successful with pediatric cases, or again why we homeopaths are branded as pediatricians. That means homeopathy is good for children. It is purely because we get more success in pediatric cases. And this is how we get more success. That means in really younger age, the children will be really in their purest of state. As the age advances, depending upon the hereditary predisposition, depending upon the social interactions, depending upon the medicines he or she receives, new and new remedy layers will be added on the basic remedy picture. So as we saw in the first example, all the symptoms were of Calcarea carbonica, and if the same child encounters many other factors as I have mentioned, slowly but steadily newer remedy pictures will be added on the constitution, so that at the particular moment when we are actually dealing the case, it is going to be tougher for us to identify the most superficial remedy to be addressed. In other words, the terminology constitutional remedy. We all know, we all as homeopathic students are in search of our homeopathic constitutional prescription from the early days of our bachelor classes, right? So this is to remind you that it is not easy to find, or it is not always a sure say that each and everyone has a single constitutional remedy. What does that mean? The constitutional remedy picture means for any complaints, if you have the symptoms of Calcarea carbonica in front, or if you are a Calcarea carbonica constitution, throughout the life, for any of your complaints, you have to use Calcarea carbonica, or you will be benefited by Calcarea carbonica. No other remedy is required. Unfortunately, that is not the case. As age advances, so the more and more constitutional prescription of a Calcarea carbonica or a silica or a tuberculinum or a sulfur or a lycopodium or an arsenic, we can get purely in children. This is the point I want to emphasize. And one more point I want to emphasize is relevant in this particular time, because lot of COVID cases are being reported among children also. And what we usually do, we usually go in search of an acute prescription, right? We have certain branded remedies in our mind for fevers, cough, coryza, pains, aches. But please bear in mind that in children, very seldom only we need an acute prescription. If the child is basically Calcarea carbonica, or if the child is basically lycopodium, during his acute state also, most probably, even after you repeatedly take the case, you won't find any other remedies. Of course, we can actually simply throw remedies. That's another case. I'm not mentioning about that. But if you strictly follow the case-taking norms, and if you take the case properly, you will come across the very same picture only. During the acutes also, you won't find a new remedy. So it is safer for you to prescribe, or it is easier for a homeopath to arrive at a minimum in pediatric cases. So today, we have to, or we are trying to learn the symptom homeopathically. How to learn a symptom homeopathically, and what is the meaning of the psychological essence of remedies, and how to differentiate remedies with pathology, keynotes, and essence. So how to address these these 3 or 4 categories? This is the interest of today's learning. So homeopathic understanding of symptom. What do you mean? So when we come across a particular feature, a particular character, for example, if you see a child who is crying, or if you see a child who is destructive, if you see a child who is restless, and if you see a child who is shy, how to understand these features? You can simply take it as shyness. You can simply take it as irritability. You can simply take it as weeping, but you will end up in a broad spectrum of remedies. All these rubrics or expressions or the terminologies I have used have lots and lots of remedies in the repertoire. So how to go or how to understand this particular expression or this particular symptom? In some children, you may come across that the child wants to be carried always. In some, they don't want to be touched. Even a slightest touch make them irritated. So how to actually understand, or what is actually the procedure of understanding in homeopathy, or how you should go further in such expressions in your case taking? So this is the way to go. Go beyond the face value of a symptom or expression. Instead of taking that expression that you come across straight away, try to go beyond the face value of the symptom. If you come across a child who wants to be carried, you just inquire or try to understand why the child wants to be carried. Is it because of fear? Is it because of insecurity? Does that carrying makes him better? Is that carrying in search of a particular position by which the child will become comfortable, etc., etc., etc. And if you can actually synthesize from the information that you get what is exactly the reason behind such an expression, and if that particular reason corroborates to the symptom of the remedy that you are in search, then it is fine. Let us make it clear by a simple example. Let us move towards a football ground where kids are playing. You will come across different type of children there, right? Some children will be aggressive, some will be really careful, some will be standing without knowing what to do, and some will be extremely competent and aggressive. You go beyond the expression and try to find out what's actually making them do so. The children who are very cautious and afraid, you can come across some children in a football ground. Why they are afraid? Why they are cautious? They could get hurt. That is one reason they assume safer positions for being afraid. Another particular reason is they don't have the stamina to actually run for a period continuously, or they will lose the stamina pretty easy. That is another reason for the sluggishness in some children. Or what are the children? Or from the homeopathic perspective, the children who are very cautious and afraid or play safer games could be the Calcarea carbonica or Lycopodium. Why Calcarea is cautious? There you have to understand the great modality of Calcarea carbonica, aggravation exertion. We have that modality very clearly represented in the keynotes. Calcarea is aggravated by exertion. You get headaches when aggravation, headaches after physical exertion, that is Calcarea carbonica. And the major theme which has been described by Professor Vitulkas in Calcarea carbonica is overexertion. Though the Calcarea carbonica are slow, they will work hard, and they will reach to such a situation where they feel actually fatigued or worn out. They feel overwhelmed. That is the description described in the essence of Materia Medica. So the Calcareas being slow, and they will lose their energy very easily by exerting, they prefer to have safer positions. You could see a goalkeeper, a fat, chubby boy being always a goalkeeper. because with his limited movements, he would be able to perform well. That is why he chose the goalkeeper post. And what's happening with lycopodium? The reason is different here. The lycopodium children or the lycopodiums are in general cowardice. They fear. They are not, though they boast or they show, they portray an image of capability, they are not so. They are coward. So, the reason for the same expression we could see, lycopodiums might also assume the goalkeeper's post, or if available a choice, they won't go for these type of sports. Instead, they go for some emotionally safer activities like reading computers or something like that, because it is a safer activity for them. So this is the reason we could come across for the same expression different remedies. So this is how we have to try to learn remedies, go beyond actual expression that we get. Calcarea loses the stamina easily, so they choose better positions. It's the same thing that happens in silica also. Silica also loses stamina very easily. That is why in adult silica, they won't argue. That is why it is described as mild, gentle, yet yielding. Yielding means they don't have the capacity to actually argue. That's why they are yielding. And beware that this type of an yielding disposition of a silica is mostly seen in slightly older children. Why? Every remedy has an evolutionary pattern. As you know, the calcarea phosphorica, the silica, all are minerals. These all things are the things by which the body is being strengthened. And the strengthening process will be delayed as the age progresses. Though they will be better on their birth, slowly the absorption of calcium, the absorption of silica, absorption of phosphorus will be less in these type of individuals, so that they won't be in actual capacity of their particular age. That's why they actually lack in their physical abilities to play. So by birth, silica will be okay. Silicas are really obstinate, extremely, and this particular, slowly as the age progresses, they will lose their grit, their stamina. And that is why we get the exact picture or the adult picture of yielding children, yielding character in a slightly adult variant of silica. So we have to be aware about the different presentations of the same remedy picture during different ages. As we all know, calcarea carbonicums in children mostly are represented as, in children below 5 years, are thermally hot. As the age advances, the same process of loosening of calcium will loosen their bodily features so that the chilliness creep in. And in adults, except in climacteric, the calcarea carbonicums are chilly. So this is how you have to understand, or you have to learn the remedy pictures. The lycopodiums are afraid to get hurt, so they choose safer positions. Hope it is clear now. So this is one way of approaching or differentiating the remedies. There are different approaches or different types of differentials that we could understand. And one such situation we have here is the case of headaches in children. It is very common that we come across cases of headaches nowadays, especially in children. We could get at least 1 or 2 cases daily. In good practitioners, it could go up even up to 5 or 6 cases of headaches. And what could be the reason? This is lockdown period and people don't, or the children doesn't have any option for the physical activities. So what they do? They are more and more into phone. They are more and more into the computers, laptops, and all these devices by which they are exerting themselves or exerting their eyes more and more. So here we have to differentiate the rubric head, pain, exertion of eyes. And the remedies coming up are ruta, silica, natrum muriaticum, natrum carbonicum, rhododendron, lycopodium, acid fusc, onosmodium, calcarea carbonicum, etc. Now our job as physicians is to differentiate these remedies. How to differentiate? Just go beyond, as I have told you, just don't think about that ruta is for exertion of eyes, but try to understand little further. What's actually happening with the ruta? The pathological differentiation. So this is one way to differentiate remedies when actually the psychological essence is not available. In onosmodium, what is happening is it's a strained feeling in the left side or the prostration of eye muscles. So the prostration of eye muscles is the reason for onosmodium, whereas in ruta it is stiffness of eye muscles. Prostration is a kind of weakness and stiffness is a kind of rigidity, right? And it is the stiffness of eye muscles in ruta that is giving the problem. And the natrum muriaticum, what's actually happening is weak eye muscles. And it will be attended with the lacrimation, the weaker eye muscles. And in silica, what's actually reason? It has nothing to do with the eye. It is actually the brain fag, the mental exertion that is giving the problem for silica. Along with that, if you get a sty, of course, often the combination of symptoms will lead us to remedies. The combination of a sty and a brain fag or mental exertion aggravation will lead to silica. If you come across mental exertion, especially mathematics, very tough thing for the child, and during the mathematics hours, the child is feeling a heavy head or a headache, the possibilities are silica and calcarea phosphorica. So acid phosphoricum, what is actually happening? Emotional weakness which is leading to the pain in eyes. So in some remedies, though it is mentioned in the rubric, it is exertion of eyes. In some rubrics, it is some remedies, it is actually due to the reason pertaining to the eye itself, but in some others, there are some other reasons mentioned. In acid phosphoricum, there is a general emotional weakness. And that emotional weakness leads to the pain or the fatigue in the eyes too, so that they cannot exert. And what's in lycopodium? Again, it is not related to eye. It is sinusitis and neuralgia felt in the right side. Though they feel that it is in the right side of the eye or the eye is aching, it is the right sided neuralgia or sinusitis that is giving them the pain. And it is rhododendron, again, it is a neuralgic type of pain, where we come across the symptomatology mostly in the weather that we Keralites are in now, the damp, wet weather. So then, if you are able to differentiate the case with pathology, it's well and enough. And if it is not happening, then look for the other symptoms or other generals present in the case. What are the generals that will lead to these type of remedies? If there is a sun sensitivity plus eye exertion, look into natrum muriaticum and natrum carbonicum. The sun sensitivity, children who are sensitive in sun, plus eye exertion, the possibilities are natrum muriaticum and natrum carbonicum. And how to differentiate natrum mura and natrum carbonicum? Of course, these two natrums have some characters in common, but if you have stomach disturbances and sensitivity to milk, probably the remedy is natrum carbonicum. And if the child has great desire for salt and there is sun sensitivity and salt desire, which we will come across in natrum muriaticum. So the stomach sensitivity is marked. If it is marked, we could find natrum carbonicum and lycopodium. And how to differentiate the natrum carbon lycopodium? Of course, the milk element will go in favor for natrum carbonicum. The sweets and the other desire, a desire for warm drinks, will go for lycopodium. So the refreshing things desire plus eye exertion is the great characteristic for acid phosphoricum. Acid phosphoricum, be in children or be in adults, very seldom only we will come across an acid phos child. Acid phosphoricum has great emotional weakness. So children, it is very rare to become emotionally weak. But it is represented in that rubric. It is not related to children. It is mostly for adults. When these type of individuals are becoming very weak, they loathe food, they loathe everything, but only one thing that will stimulate them is refreshing things. Fruits, fruit juices, aerated soft drinks, or refreshing things. That is the desire for acid phosphoricum. And in children with tendencies to abscesses, the great exertion of mind, they find it difficult to learn. And if there is tendency to abscess in that individual, the probable remedy is silica. And how to confirm a silica? If you feel that the child is a child has symptoms of silica, ask for these questions: whether there is any tendencies for abscesses in that case. If there is any brittle nails, the nail complaints or abscesses in and around that nail area, paronychia, or nail abscesses, or other abscesses, or if the child is having any offensive foot sweat. Or in the history, most probably, see, we seldom use the symptoms according to the age. The child that refuses mother's milk, of course, that we cannot get that symptom in a slightly older children, but you can ask for the history, whether the child has stopped drinking mother's milk in a very younger age, very early age. Say 8 months, we could see. So please remember that it is actually the decision from the child itself. In some cases, when the mother becomes pregnant too soon, the child has to forcefully separate it. That is another case. That is not refusal. If the child himself decides to go against mother's milk in an early age, that is silica. And if you come across such a history in children, that is silica. The physical exertion in general aggravation. So some children will say that after I play a lot, I feel headache. How it happens? They drench in sweat, the dehydration, they lose the calcium element, and that is the reason for the calcarea carbonica presentation. So this is how we have to understand or how we have to differentiate remedies in the finer aspects. In mental exertion in general, I have mentioned the remedy is calcarea phosphorica. So this is another aspect I would like to discuss, is how to differentiate the remedy from one symptom. We get a symptom, probably the desires, and we come across many remedies for that. Desire for sweet, desire for salt, desire for milk, desire for fat, desire for sour fruits, desire for sweets, ice creams, etc., etc. Then let us take one of those symptoms or one or two of those symptoms and look how to differentiate. The desire for sweets. How many remedies you know for desire for sweets? There are many remedies, right? The most important is sulfur, lycopodium, calcarea carbonica, argentum nitricum. Then these are the four important remedies, right? Some lesser important remedies are there. So what is happening in argentum nitricum is sugary sweets, sugary, pure sugar, those who put 2 to 3 spoons in tea. This is happening with argentum nitricum and calcarea carbonica. But the difference here is the sugar will aggravate in argentum nitricum, whereas it is bearable in case of calcarea carbonica. This is the difference. And it is desire for a lot of cream, the white cream. Argentum nitricum, desire for a lot of cream. And in lycopodium, what is the differentiating feature? Lycopodiums are also aggravated by sweet, but that aggravation is better by eructations. Both argentum nitricum and lycopodium has this capacity to bloat and burp. Of course, argentum nitricum is marked with a lot of loudy burping, right? Loud burps, loud eructations. But though it is aggravation in both of the remedies, lycopodiums are better by eructations, whereas argentum nitricum is not better by eructations. Though we consider phosphorus as the main remedy in aversion to sweet, it has a peculiar desire for one aspect, one or two aspects. That means chocolate and ice creams. Phosphorus has great desire for chocolates and ice creams in sweets, and it has aversion to all the other sweet things. Phosphorus is mentioned 3 mark in desire for salt. And one of the great features by which, or great symptom by which we usually, or Professor Vitulkas usually confirms phosphorus, is desire for ice creams. If a person is very open and he is very sensitive, or he is very sympathetic and he has sensitive or great desire for ice creams, the picture is clear for phosphorus according to Professor Vitulkas. Okay. So now come to another symptom, that is desire for salt in the decreasing intensity. So this is the point I want to actually share. If there is a desire mentioned in a rubric and we have a few remedies, the intensity of the desire will be different in different remedies. So desire for salt in the decreasing intensity, the most intense desire is there in natrum muriaticum, slightly lesser in phosphorus, slightly lesser in argentum nitricum, and then comes veratrum album. So what is the peculiarity mentioned in Natrum muriaticum is, Natrum mur, the child puts salt in the mouth. So if you come across this particular symptom, Vitholka says that you can give Natrum mur straight away. You please don't inquire about anything else. If the child puts salt directly into the mouth, like the symptom that he mentions, if you come across a baby that wets the pillow around, that means the nape of the neck perspiration, you can simply prescribe Calcarea carbonicum irrespective of the pathology. In whatever may be the depth of the pathology, you can prescribe Calcarea carbonica. Likewise, if you see a child who puts salt in his mouth, you can prescribe Natrum muriaticum. It is quoted that when compared, that phosphorus adds salts to the food, but Natrum mur does it till it is white. Just imagine a plate where you have some food, and if you want to add some salt, phosphorus simply adds some salt, but Natrum muriaticum will add the salt till it is white. So that is the intensity of desire for salt in Natrum muriaticum. And in this argentum nitricum, it is the great combination of salt and sweets. If you together come across great craving for salt, great craving for sweets, and if sweet aggravation, these two combination, it is none other than argentum nitricum you can simply blindly prescribe. So these are the essentials or the characteristics or the combination of symptoms which makes a remedy 100% sure. And in Veratrum album, the combination is sour and salt. It is mentioned that if you come across a child who takes lemon dipped in salt, that is for sure Veratrum album. In our part of the world, most children will add or will take raw mango, which is really sour. The raw mango dipped in salt, they will take it. The most important probability here is Veratrum album. The unripe sour fruit desire is there in many other remedies, such as Medorinum, Calcarea sulfurica, Hepa sulfurica, Lachesis, Corallium rubrum, etc. But this is the great combination of sour and salt. And if you come across a child who desires every taste, being it salt, being it sour, being it bitter, being it meat, be it fish, be it ice creams, be it anything that desires and desires in excess, the remedy is Medorinum. So these are the finer aspects of remedy differential. So what do you mean by difficult case in homeopathy? In difficult case in homeopathy means one, as I have mentioned in the beginning, the ones with unclear picture. And what does that unclear picture means? When the case or when the individual is really healthy, you will come across very good symptomatology. Or in a case, if you get clear symptoms, you can easily understand that he or she has a very good state of health. In whatever may be the pathology, in some cases of cancer, you might come across very clear symptoms. And thus, those type of cancers are easily or very well managed by homeopathy. On the other hand, if you find it very difficult during the whole case taking process, you won't get anything clear. Of course, he mentions about headache, where it is located. Doctor, I have pain in whole of my head. And what's the nature of pain? Oh, doctor, I can't explain. It's actually paining, nothing else I know. Is there any radiation of pain? No, doctor, it's only upon head. Is that getting any way modified with heat or cold? No, I can't say, doctor. These type of cases are the tougher cases for you. Instead, if someone says that I have a throbbing headache in the right side and it moves to the left, it has a shifting character. That is the peculiar thing. You can think about the shifting remedies like lacunainum, calibichromicum, pulsatilis, etc. So these type of facts makes a clear or unclear case. So the unclear picture we will usually get in third-party reporting cases. We usually in COVID situations, you can seldom only see cases directly. Over the phone, you will be reported. So where we get minimum informations. And in cases where many homeopathic medicines were prescribed before, the picture will be very clear, very unclear. Why? Only the minimum produces the most desirable effect. If please try to understand whether if the case is addressed with a partial symptom. If it is a partial symptom, what will happen? Some of the symptoms will be removed. And of course, some remedy symptoms will be added. So after you receive many remedies, when we take the case, what's actually happening? We will get unclear picture of some of the symptoms will be of the case itself, some will be of the remedies that were given. This is another possibility. And nowadays, as the disease influences are becoming more and more complicated, the miasmatic influences are becoming mixed up, the genetic predispositions are becoming really bad, the mental emotional state is becoming really affected. You will come across really difficult situations there where you could not find it easy to identify a correct remedy pattern. So in such situations, we shall come across a very characteristic symptom present in a great intensity. Of course, the case will be different, case will be difficult, but the particular characteristic will be present in a great intensity, which gives a feel that it is most important individualizing feature in that individual. And then what we have to do is need to differentiate the remedies. Instead of taking up the totality in that particular instance, if we are not getting enough information, good quality symptoms, and if we still take all those symptoms and we repertorize together, we will end up nowhere. Instead, if we try to find the most important individualizing aspect of that particular case and then try to differentiate, then we are heading towards the right direction. Let us go with an example here. A 2-year-old boy was brought with fever and upper respiratory infection since few days. This is actually a case situation. He has vomited twice and not having any specific modalities to differentiate. This is the description by the parents. Fever is there and some upper respiratory infection is there, and he has vomited twice. And vomitus too that was not offensive, that offensive or not related to food or drinks. Can't say thirstless. So we are not getting any particular or any leading symptoms towards a probable remedy. The child was extremely irritated, always crying, always wants to be carried, couldn't examine the child because he was screaming. So till now, we were not getting any particular interesting aspects in the case. See, but this was the interesting part. The child was extremely irritated, always crying, wants to be carried, couldn't examine the child because he was screaming. So now what to be done? We don't have any other modalities or any other peculiar things, but we have a great concomitant with us, this irritable child. So the inference in such situation is that no clear symptom totality to repertorize and get a result, but there is a strong presentation that of a very irritable state of child, and this is the change of state of that child since the acute has started. So in every acute situations, you have to look into the change of state, the change of symptomatology. Prior to that, if that particular individual was thirsty, now he is thirstless, so you have to take thirstless. Usually a very irritated, impulsive type, now he is very mild and lying simple, that you have to take. Likewise, this change in the symptomatology has to be addressed. So now we have to individualize this irritable child. What are the probable remedies and how to understand or how to make it clear? Why the child is irritated? As I have mentioned in the first instance, now go beyond the actual presentation. Why the child is irritated? And this is the mechanism, or this is how we have to understand why the child is irritated and how the irritation is manifested and where it is expressed. This makes the patient individualization complete. See, there are 3 or 4 aspects, right? Why the child is irritated, how the irritation is manifested, and where it is expressed. And this should be the way to approach in every emotions. When we come across a grief, you just don't simply take the grief remedies together or simply prescribe natrum muriaticum in all grief cases. You have to understand, or you have to take the reaction of the person who has been gone through such a grief. Because different individual reacts different to the different stimuli. So here we have to understand why the child is irritated and how the irritation is manifested and where it is manifested. So the probable remedies that are coming up are chamomilla, of course, you might be familiar, Senna, Calcarea phosphoricum, tuberculinum, Nux vomica, Lycopodium, natrum muriaticum, and Antimonium crudum. These are the possibilities in this case. These are the irritable remedies, irritable children. Now let us consider, or let us try to differentiate each of these remedies. What's happening with chamomilla? Why chamomilla is irritable? Again, the question comes, why? Because of the oversensitivity of the nervous system. The chamomilla children, or chamomilla in general, is oversensitive. We will actually wonder on seeing the reaction, oh, why he or she is that much irritated. It is not that much a painful situation. So this is the chamomilla picture where you will feel unusually stimulated, or one will be unusually stimulated or sensitive, producing an effect. That is because of the oversensitive nervous system, and especially oversensitive to pain. So chamomillas are greatly oversensitive to pain. And what will happen as the reaction to this oversensitivity? Expressed as capriciousness and touchiness. What do you mean by capriciousness? If you offer something for the baby, he will refuse, or he will ask for many things. When offered, he will refuse. That is capriciousness. There are many other remedies, like Calicarbonica, Bryonia, Senna, chamomilla, Calcarea phosphorica too. So the expression is like capriciousness or touchiness. You cannot touch or look into the chamomilla, or that look itself will produce the pain. But mostly in children at dentition, it is said that why chamomilla is the dentition remedy for the problems happening around dentition. Because there will be a slight irritation that you can imagine, right? When the teeth is trying to erupt, it will impart a type of a slight irritation or pain in the jaws. Usually children will tolerate it well. Though there is some sort of irritation, it is happening in every individual and they will tolerate it well. But chamomilla can't. This is the reason. That much irritation itself brings out the great amount of irritability. That is, the response is with irritability, and they will shriek and cry. They will shriek and cry. They cannot tolerate. And it is manifested by that redness, that selective redness in one cheek, the other one will be pale. And what they want, they don't know what to do. And these kids, they desire to be carried, but they are not pacified by carrying. They want to be carried and rocked, but they are not pacified. So this is the chamomilla. You know by now why the chamomilla is getting irritated and where it is manifested and how it is manifested. Now coming to the Sina part. It is again the irritation of the nervous system, and it is manifested in the mental plane as irritability and capriciousness, and in the physical plane. So the manifestation, though there's the irritation, there is irritation in the mental part or the nervous system, the manifestation is different in Sina and chamomilla. In the first appearance, though these two remedies will be great confusion to pick up. To differentiate, both will be extremely irritated, both will be touchy, both will be capricious, but in Sina, we will come across the grinding of teeth or the boring. The nose part will be extremely irritated. They will bore into the nose and they will rub the nose on the shoulders, and the carrying on the shoulders will make them better in Sina. Because why? The pressure on the abdomen will make them better because of its worm complaints, the pains. The boring in the different orifices, in the rectum, in the nose, or even they pinch the parent who carries them. And what's actually happening with nux vomica? Again, the seat of affection is nervous system, overexcitability, oversensitivity. That is why nux vomicas are more sensitive towards sound, light, smell, etc. And again, it is manifested as irritability and as twitching and jerkings. You know that nux vomica is our primary remedy in anger cases. It's the same in children also. On the physical plane, it is primarily the stomach. Okay, the manifestation is primarily in the stomach. It is mentioned that if you come across the 3I, irritability, impatient, and ineffectual urge to stool, the nux vomica is confirmed. Irritability, impatience, and ineffectual urge to stool. So this is the manifestation, where it is affected, how it is manifested, and where it is manifested. Now we have to differentiate the other remedies, Calcarea phosphorica and tuberculin. Basically, the two remedies that will desire to travel. The children who are very much eager to go out and travel. And why? These two remedies are basically considered as discontented remedies. That is why they desire to travel. There is a great differentiation from Calcarea phosphoricum and tuberculinum, that Calcarea phosphoricum doesn't know what is actually the problem with them. You will come across children, babies, who will always constantly groan and moan. And if you ask the parent why the child is being like this, they can't answer. I don't know, doctor, he's like this. Constant irritation, groaning and moaning, groaning and moaning. So it is something within themselves. Whereas in tuberculinum, it is not within themselves. They are very happy within themselves, but they get bored or discontented with the surroundings. That is why they need change. That is why they need to travel. In tuberculinum children, they don't need the same food every day. They will get bored. If today they ate puri very well, and tomorrow, because of this experience, if you provide them with puri, they won't. They need change. And if they like to be carried and go out, if you take them to the same location, same place every day, it is not going to work in case of tuberculinum. They need change. And in adults, what's happening? They won't stick to the same type of job every day. These are the people who want to shift their job very frequently. Shift their place of living very frequently. So in Calcarea phosphorica, the discontentment is basically within himself, expressed as moaning and groaning in dissatisfaction. So can't say what is wrong and what they want, only thing that pacify is being carried and travel. The tuberculinum, dissatisfied with the surroundings because they need to change and love to travel. Of course, the most important characteristic by which we can identify the tuberculinum is the grinding of teeth and maliciousness. The children who are really malicious, what do you mean by maliciousness? Maliciousness means intentional destruction. Intentional destruction. Of course, things can get destroyed by different ways, right? How you use it. The toy might get destroyed. And intentionally also you can make it break. So the intent, tuberculinums are the children who will intentionally destroy. There may be a purpose behind that. For example, if you are going for a movie and you are not planning to take this tuberculinum boy, and he cannot tolerate that, and if he has to out of that discontentment, what he will do is he will use that malicious intent and he will destroy something very dear or near to the parent, very precious, so that the whole program is going to be cancelled. This is how the maliciousness in tuberculinum happens. So coming to the lycopodium, there is great inner security or inner insecurity or cowardice and expressed as irritability. But what's the peculiarity of the irritability? The lycopodiums, though they are extremely irritated or irritable, cranky at home or with the parents, they will be extremely neat in front of you. Or at least in the first instance. You will come across many such children. When they first come and meet you, they will be extremely neat, polite, and well behaved. And as the acquaintance become used to, on the second or third visit, if you are a soft person, then they will start to dominate. And this is the nature of lycopodium. They will dominate on their inferiors, but with someone who is superior, they are really afraid and cowardice. So the irritability will be expressed to only those who are at par or below them. The irritability or domination is mostly towards the family members. Mostly the family members are the ones who are target people for lycopodiums. The physical plane manifests as gastrointestinal distension. So when, how, and where in lycopodium is being explained. So with increased appetite. Usually, these type of children or in adults, if you come across great appetite during night, if you come across great appetite, that's a very peculiar symptom. You have to think about 3 remedies. The first and foremost is soranum, the second one is phosphorus, and the third one is lycopodium. And if you find across great thirst during sleep, the most important remedy or the first and foremost thing to be considered is silica. So the one feet hot and the other cold is another characteristic of lycopodium. Demands warm drinks, as you all know. So the natrum muriaticum, this might be or this must be a slightly not that much a familiar situation for most of us, right? Natrum mur and irritability. Yes, of course, natrum mur children can be really irritating. And what makes the peculiarity or what is the peculiar aspect in them is how they behave when they are irritated. So normally when an irritable child is there, they will be demanding to carry them or to pacify them. But in natrum mur, it is the reverse. If you go and try to console them, the irritability will become more. So please remember that most of the children below the age of 5, if they are natrum muriaticum, will be aggressive and irritated. Just don't think, skip from thinking of natrum mur if you see such a child. As I have mentioned, the characteristic of the or the typical characteristic of natrum mur of being introverted, being sensitive, being mild, develops of late. How? Because of the repeated griefs these children acquaints during their growing age. The first instance of grief, they will react. The subsequent episodes, they know that by reacting, they are the ones who are going to be affected because they are really sensitive to be rejected. So that is the basic reason for natrum muriaticum pathology. They are very sensitive to rejection or great fear of being ridiculed. So this is the reason behind the natrum muriaticum pathology. So in order to prevent being ridiculed or being rejected, they will withdraw. And in children, when they start their life, the instances will be less, and slowly as these type of circumstances become more and more common in their lives, the sulking or the introversion will be more and more, and as they reach a particular age, they will attain the normal characteristic which we have learned in our materia medica as introverted. So this is an evolution that's happening in natrum muriaticum. But the peculiarity is that the consolation aggravation part is there right from the beginning itself. Though the external manifestation or appearance will be different in the infancy, in the childhood, and in the mature state, the consolation part will be there throughout. So that is the typical symptom by which we have to identify a natrum muriaticum in children. So in cases of fever with vomiting, so here actually I have told you many things, but we are please don't lose the thread of the conversation. We were actually discussing the case. In this case, the fever with the vomiting, natrum mur has to be seriously thought of. One of our most important remedies with fever with vomiting. Other remedies are, most important one is eupatorium, second one is arsenicum album, then comes phosphorus, then comes our natrum muriaticum. And if then, when more irritated, when one tries to console, this is the characteristic by which we have to differentiate the natrum muriaticum. This is because of the emotional vulnerability. They are more sensitive. The emotional vulnerability is the reason behind their nature. Now coming to the next remedy, which is antimonium crudum. Another great sensitive remedy, greatly sensitive. See, most of the remedies which we come across in irritability is because of the sensitivity part, either emotionally sensitive or physically sensitive. The emotional sensitivity is there in antimonium crudum as it is sensitive in the physical pain, and the physical pain, the irritability is mostly manifested in the stomach. So the gastric irritation is the reason behind the irritability and mourning due to gastric irritability and mourning in antimonium crudum. Some of the most irritated situations that we come across, we will usually think about a chamomilla, we will usually think about a cinna, but remember in mind, this is one of the most important remedies that will actually mimic a chamomilla or a cinna, or even more than a chamomilla or cinna. So when looked, these children sulk. That means they try to hide. If there is nothing available to hide, they will actually hide behind their own palm, and they will look in between the fingers. This is the typical description that we will get in antimonium crudum. Often we think about a chamomilla or cinna instead of antimonium crudum, and the conformation is the famous keynote, thick coated tongue. And of course, if you get a peculiar keynote, that desire for cucumbers, this is something mentioned by Professor Vithoulkas himself. And I have seen in 2 or 3 cases at least, if you get desire for cucumber, a very strong symptom, please remember antimonium crudum. So this is how to differentiate. I think by now you must be familiar, or you must be understanding how to actually go with the pediatric remedy differential. Now something lighter. On seeing some character or some behaviors, we as homeopaths become curious as to get into the probable remedy. Let's go to the kids' play area. So what's the peculiar things happening there? You can get different types of kids. As I have mentioned, the child who sits and plays with his toy without much of a movement could be, because of the movement is aggravation, the child could be Calcarea carbonica, which has least desire to exert physically, they get tired easily. And the child who sits alone or can't join and play in a group because of inefficiency, or he may play with the same toy for hours or can't use the toy for his age. So that is something to be really looked into. These type of children, some children usually find it difficult to actually cope up with something that is suitable for their age. And this will happen to adults also. They are comfortable with the routine they are in. But if something beyond that is given, they find it extremely difficult. Especially using gadgets. And these type of the individuals are to be considered as someone who is not up to his age. And this is considered as a dwarfishness. That means he's small for his age. That is why the Baraita are really small for his age. The Baraita carbonica. The maturity is below the age. The physical appearance is also below the age. That is why we come across many children who are stunted in Baraita carbonica. So when we go to a kids play area, if we come across someone who after many days is not able to cope up with that situation, it is that inability in their nature. That is Baraita carbonica. So the fighter of the group who fights to get the toy, the fighter of the group, aggressive of he wants everything first. He wants to be the prominent one, and that is Naxvomica. The children who destroys the toys. As I have mentioned, there could be many reasons behind the destruction. The children who really destroys the toys are Medorinums, Tuberculinum, and sulfur. And the reason behind the destruction is different in different children. The reason for tuberculinum destruction is not the reason for destruction in Medorinum. It is not the reason for destruction in sulfur. See, if the child is that much a curious child, after seeing the toy for some time, he wants to know what is actually inside it. And for that, what he needs, he wants to open it. And somehow he makes it open and the toy will get destroyed. So this destruction is due to curiosity. And this is happening with sulfur. The sulfur, the philosophical child, needs to know what is happening. Always they put some questions. That is why they destroy the toy. And the tuberculinum, I have mentioned, it is the intentional destruction or the malicious destruction. They can destroy or they cannot, depending upon the situation. And what is actually happening in Medorinum? In Medorinum, they are with such an energy and passion that they use the toy intensely. And they use the toy with such an intention, such an intensity that they will get destroyed. They will crash it with the other toy and they will crash it to the wall, and then ultimately they will the toy will get destroyed. So when we see a symptom, just go beyond the expression to actually think about what is actually happening in that individual and try to relate with the remedy in your mind. And if that connection is maintained, then we can say that your prescription is 100% correct. Otherwise, if you see destructiveness and if you simply prescribe a remedy, that is most probably going to be wrong. So differentiation, sulfur are so curious, they want to know the mechanism of operation, what's inside. And tuberculin I have mentioned, they get bored easily with the toy and they want a new one, that is dissatisfaction. And there are cosmopolitans. And the Medorinum, as I have mentioned, they uses the toy with such an intensity that they may get destroyed. They crash against the wall or with another toy. So there are another few symptoms by which you have to identify a Medorinum. We have to consider some very important points. The first and foremost is, as you can see in this picture, the children who stay awake very late. So when you come across children who stay awake very late, you have to think about few remedies or few reasons behind. And one reason is that they are more energetic during night. So Medorinums stay awake in the night because they are really energetic during night. And this Medorinum has this peculiarity in the highest degree. You can come across the same intensity or desire to stay awake in almost all nosodes, Medorinum, Carcinosinum, and tuberculinum. But if you come across a very high energy level during nights, you can come across such an individuals in adults. Nowadays, these remedies, that means the nosodes are being indicated very frequently because of the change in the recent scenario. The influence of the psychotic mass, the influence of the syphilitic mass. That is how these remedies are getting indicated more frequently nowadays. So if a child stay awake very late and they wake up very late in the day, then probably that could be a Medorinum. And how to confirm a Medorinum is, if you get such a combination, a child with very high energy, a very passionate child who is not afraid, will do all the naughty things, and they stay awake very late. One or two symptoms more can seal off your case. One is the desire for sour, unripe fruits. Medorinum children or in the adults, you get desire for sour, unripe fruits. They like fruits very much, but it should be rather unripe. That is another characteristic of Medorinum. The second one is, if you come across a great family history of cardiac complaints or some venereal diseases, which very rarely only one will admit. So try to look for the family history for cardiac complaints in a relatively younger age. That means in 40s and 50s, if there is a history of early deaths in the family due to cardiac complaints, or even they have undergone CABG or angioplasties, that strongly suggests Medorinum. Another remedy is Tuja. Then there is another symptom which I think it is not that significant in our situations, but in Europe it is quite common. Great desire for sea and beaches. Here we seldom only go towards to beaches, but in Europe it is a great passion for them. And if someone has great passion for sea and great passion for beaches, it is Medorinum. Okay. So the children who are really careful with their toys, the children who take care of their belongings very well, these are the good boys or the good girls. Arranges them very well, and they are very possessive. Again, go beyond the particular nature. Why the child is doing that? Is it because they are insecure? The insecurity will lead to collect each and everything that will come across their way. In future, if something happens and if there is nothing there for them, they need all these things. So they will be very greedily after the possessions. That's why arsenicum is listed high in avarice, the rubric avarice or miserly. That is the reason why this child is careful. Of course, that is why they maintain their things very cleanly. They won't destroy. That is why arsenic is listed in fastidiousness. What are the fastidious remedies that we come across? Arsenicum, Nux vomica, Natrum muriaticum, and carcinosin. Why arsenicum is fastidious? Because of their insecurity. I'm not mentioning about the children. Generally, arsenicums are very insecure. Why they are insecure? They have great insecurity regarding their health. Why they are insecure regarding their health? Ultimately, they are afraid of the ultimate truth, that is death. So that ultimate fear makes them insecure, makes them vulnerable, and makes them to do all those gestures that we will come across in arsenicum album. That means cleanliness, neatness, anxiety about health, etc. That is why they clean their belongings very well, because of the ultimate thing, that is they are greatly insecure or fearful about the diseases. And that is not the reason for carcinosin. Why carcinosin is, or why the carcinosin children maintains their belongings well? Again, it is due to the sensitivity. The carcinosin children, we have nowadays, we could come across, in my experiences, out of the 100 prescriptions, almost 20 to 25 are carcinosins. We will usually mistake a carcinosin for many other remedies. You see an openness of a phosphorus, and you come across the sympathy of a phosphorus, you think that it is phosphorus, and if you prescribe phosphorus, and if it doesn't work, think about carcinosin, because carcinosin has that sympathy element. If you come across the great fastidiousness, and if you prescribe an arsenicum, and if it is not working, think about carcinosin. The carcinosin has that fastidious aspect. If you come across a great desire for all these natural things, that means the climatic changes, nature, animals, they are really fond of thunder and lightnings, which reminds you of sepia. But if you give sepia and if it doesn't work, think about carcinosin, because carcinosins are greatly sensitive to nature. They love thunderstorms and they love rain. And here it is, here it differentiates with phosphorus, which has great fear for thunderstorms. Then again, they are really affected by horrible and sad stories. If you come across children or adults who are really sensitive to sad stories, horrible and sad stories make them sad. The two remedies listed are Calcarea carbonica and carcinosin. So I have already mentioned 3 or 4 or 5 remedy characteristics of phosphorus, of Calcarea carbonica, of sepia, or then what is that? Arsenicum album. There are other remedy pictures also which will come in carcinosin. So what I I am here to say is that when you feel that you come across many remedy pictures together and we cannot confirm that particular remedy, think about carcinosin. And the basic pathology for carcinosinum is their sensitivity, as I have mentioned. These children, if a parent comes and says to you that in the whole lifetime, I have never felt any time where I could see any fault in this boy or girl. They are so well behaved, well mannered, never a problem child. Such a description, if you come across, you never shy away from a carcinosinum. And why carcinosinums are like that? Because of their sensitivity. They are extremely sensitive to reprimands, to criticisms. It is the same as we come across in Natrum muriaticum also. They are very sensitive to criticisms. It is in a way similar to sulfur, who is also sensitive to criticism. But here the difference in carcinosinum is they cannot stand reprimands. And how they react to that? In order to avoid getting reprimanded, they will do things very properly. It is not actually the insecurity that we come across in arsenicum that will make the carcinosinum arrange things beautifully. It is that if they don't do that, they will be reprimanded or scolded. They cannot take it. That is why they do things. So each and everything, each and every reaction from a carcinosin is because of this fear or this sensitivity. So please be aware about such children. And the carcinosin, I think it is not included in our curriculums, B.H.M.S. curriculum. So please remember carcinosin whenever you come across such a child. And carcinosin also has, see, all these nosodes has lots of passions, lots of excesses in them. If you see something in excess, always bear in mind you have a nosode in your hand. It could be tuberculinum, it could be medorinum, it could be carcinosin, or it could be a sorinum. Excessive which, with excessive appetite, with excessive chilliness, it is sorinum. With excessive energy and great desire for stretching the hours to late night and passionate, and they go for anything in excess, that means any food, any taste, great craving for sweets, great craving for salt, great craving for ice, great craving for meat, great craving for fat, great craving for sour fruits. It is medorinum. So it is excess. Likewise, the tuberculinums. Great desire for travel, greatly passionate. They are into every type of activities. They are not fearful. They are into the riskiest of activities. If you come across across children who are not fearful, who will climb and jump, even if they fall, they don't mind. They are tuberculinums or the retrums or some other remedies. There's plus other characteristics. Please don't prescribe with one particular feature. Vitulka says that you need at least 4 or 5 keynotes of the remedies to actually prescribe. Okay. Now coming to the next thing. Am I taking too much time? Hello, someone please give me answer. So shall I wind up? Hello.
Doctor, we have 10 more minutes, doctor.
10 more minutes.
We have 10 more minutes, doctor.
Okay, we will go. So the people or the children who are generous with their toys, of course we know Why he is generous? Please try to analyze that. Why he is generous? If he is feeling sympathy for the other one, it could be a phosphorus or causticum. You see, the phosphorus can really actually diffuse into the other person's mind. Or they will feel that, oh, that particular fellow is not having anything and I should give them. That is the actual sympathy. But what differentiates it from causticum is that causticum is more, but though causticum is sympathetic, but the sympathy of causticum is slightly different from the phosphorus. Phosphorus' sympathy is related to the physical sufferings. That means some disease or something lacking or something like that. But causticums are sympathetic to a social cause. If he thinks that that particular child deserves the toy and he is not having it. So that is a social issue. And they will feel sympathetic and they will do anything for that child. And carcinosinum, as I have told you, they are greatly sympathetic because if all those gestures are because of their emotional sensitivity, they wanted to give, or if otherwise, if their parents scold them, if they don't give them, they can't bear it. That is one aspect, but still they also are sympathetic like phosphorus to actually give them. So more than a toy demands books. There are some children who don't want toys. They need books. These are the children who are into emotionally safer activities. Why? The reading is one of the emotionally safer activities because no one else is involved in such a situation. No one else is involved. If someone is involved, there are chances of a friction or something giving, taking, so that he can get affected. So in order to not get affected, they will become introverted and they will move into safer activities like reading, like listening to music. That is why we come across the rubric desire for music and desire for reading. These are the remedies. Which are they? We know the natrons, basically, carcinosins, sulfur and lycopodium. And the reason for each and every of these remedies are different. I have mentioned natrum muriaticum because it is a safer thing, emotionally safer thing. Sulfur because they are curious. They want to know more and more. That's why they read. The nerd type of children, right? With spectacles, always sitting in front, lean, thin, untidy appearance. They won't like to bathe, but they have a lot of knowledge. They can talk about anything, but don't criticize them. They can criticize anyone. Critical, philosophical, they need knowledge, they need to know what's actually happening or what is next, etc., etc., etc. That is sulfur. And why lycopodium is into reading? Lycopodium is more into intellectual activities than into physical things because they are afraid of physical things. That is why lycopodium reads a lot. Okay. The children who is very aggressive, fearless, climbs up the windows, jump from there, insensitive to pains or injuries, are insensitive to punishment too. tuberculinum, veratrum album, and medorinum. I have explained these remedies. I think we have to understand veratrum album also, which is also a very frequently indicated and less used remedies according to my knowledge. How to actually understand or how to actually study veratrum album? In veratrum album, we will come across a child who is actually precocious of his age. In Beretta, we have mentioned that he is not up to his age, but in veratrum album, it is the opposite. He or she is beyond his or her age. If a child, here in veratrum album also, we could see a very curious child. The curiosity of sulfur and veratrum album is slightly different. These are the two remedies, two children who will constantly keep on questioning, keep on asking questions. What is that? What's this? What is this? Always, if some children steps into your clinic and he constantly asks to their parents, what is that? What is it? What is it? You have to bear in mind these two remedies and how to differentiate. In sulfur, there is a genuine, though there is a genuine desire for knowing things, it is a kind of showing off also. That means he has to project an image that he knows something and he is something big, and he needs appreciation from that. If he asks something, some questions or some answers, he expects appreciation. Oh, you want to know this. And if someone appreciates, sulfur will be very happy. These are the kids in the classrooms. When teacher asks a question, who will stand up and answer, and he looks back whether he is being appreciated by the other fellows. Whereas in veratrum album, the type of questions will be different. He will ask questions beyond his age. If a 5-year-old boy reads Pablo Neruda, that means that is something beyond the intellectual capacity that we will expect in a 5-year-old boy. And the questions will be like that. Something related to the space, extraterrestrial, or very much. And though, of course, he is intellectual and he has the capacities, he also has the delusions that he is something superior to send to the world. That is why veratrum album is being mentioned as a great remedy for delusions of grandeur. Veratrum album has great religious manias. That's why we come across the great religiousness in veratrum album adults. They believe that they have been sent to the world with a great mission. That's why they preach us in corners of streets, even though there is no one listening to them. So the intellectual capacity will be beyond their age, and they are very intelligent also. I have one of my friend's daughter. He actually came up and told me a story that his daughter once after school mentioned about a sad story about her class teacher, that her class teacher's husband has died and she is in a very bad mood, what to do, and a lot of such things, and the parents really felt really bad and sorry for the teacher, and they went on the next PTA meeting. When they approached that particular teacher, that they were feeling very sorry, and they were astonished to find that it was a lie. See, these type of children can can tell a lie so convincingly that we could not expect of something from this age group. So they can manipulate. That is why I have told that if you come across a really capable child, intellectually very much higher, still very manipulative, something beyond of their age, think about Veratrum album. You can always confirm Veratrum album by the desire for sour things with salt. This particular combination of sour and salt. Of course, we could get another thing. If you come across a child who really wants to chew the ice cubes, two remedies you have to remember. One is medorinum and one is Veratrum album. Okay, I think I'm running out of, okay, one more thing. Child who is more into drawing and painting. These are another activities that is creative. A lot of creativity will be there in carcinosinum, phosphorus and Staphylos aureus. I have mentioned carcinosinum, you know phosphorus, and now you have to learn Staphylos aureus. We could come across a Staphylos aureus child where there is a lot of suppressions, as you know. How the suppression can happen? Either this can be a constitutional Staphylos aureus or a state of Staphylos aureus added on the normal constitution. Please try to imagine. See, this particular child who was the first child in the family, then comes his brother or sister into the scenario, and if this brother or sister is really a dominating one, suddenly this particular child will feel a lot of pressure and he will feel suppressed. It is the basic inability of the person to actually fight back if someone dominates. That is the Staphylos aureus type of picture. So a constitutional Staphylos aureus picture where the child is very mild, yielding, never who is complaining, who will always swallows his indignation. This is the word used by Professor Vitulkas. One who swallows the indignation. The indignation part is not there much in children, but in adults, if you come across, is a wife, for example, the husband comes and abuses, and without any protest, without any anything giving back, they will smile and swallow their indignation, and all their indignation remains inside. And this is the type of presentation we come across in Staphylos aureus. And either this Staphylos aureus, that is the adult state in children, this is because of either a very dominating parent or a very dominating sibling, or into a class, if there is a very dominating friend, the Staphylos aureus state can be super added to a much basic remedy layer. And how to confirm a Staphylos aureus? If we come across a very mild child who has a lot of tendency for styes, think about Staphylos aureus, silica, pulsatilla. Again, how to differentiate? If a child or adult has a great weakness, if he has a few minutes of siesta, if he takes an afternoon nap and wakes up miserably with great tiredness and has history of styes, we can confirm a Staphylos aureus picture. So by this, I think I can wind up today's session. We have more to discuss. We will discuss in some other sessions. So I think now some questions, some queries, if there, please put it in the chat box. If it is in my capacity, I will answer. Okay, thank you for the patient listening, and thank you for IHMA Chennai for inviting me for such a session. Hope I had given something to learn So these are my convictions about the remedies and what I have learned in my practice. And from Professor Vitulkas, I am deeply indebted to him for whatever I am right now. And this great organization, IHMA, for giving me such a lot of platforms to teach and thereby to grow also. So thank you once again, all of you, for the patient listening. And if there is any questions, please shoot it up.
Thank you, sir. That was such an informative session. We have a couple of questions, sir. We request you to answer if possible, sir. We have Dr. Ashok Madan asking the first question. His doubt is there any remedy specifically that can be given so that the child can be turned out during delivery if the umbilical cord is stuck around the neck of the child? Is there any specific remedy that we can give for this case?
No, doctor, I don't go for specifics also, and I don't know. I am very sorry that I don't know to answer that question. Actually, there is no specifics. Actually, there is no specifics in homeopathy, and you have to take case of that mother and go for the best indicated remedy. Of course, you can consider that particular rubric, that means complications during delivery or something like that, and try to differentiate that. That is my way of prescription.
Okay, sir. He also has second question, sir. He's asking whether any remedy can be given to the child on chest since childhood.
Please, can you repeat it once again?
If the child is having red navy on chest since childhood, is there any remedies that can help him with the red navy? He means angioma, I guess, also cherry angioma.
See again, the prescription shouldn't be based on pathology. Pathology is, based on pathology, if we start to prescribe, there is every chance of losing that case. Actually, homeopathy is about individualization. We actually study our curriculum slightly differently, I think. We should study our curriculum slightly differently. We actually has framed our curriculums in such a way that we learn the practice of medicine part and then we learn the remedy. That is actually the allopathic type of learning. In homeopathy, actually, that is not the case to be done. So I'm really sorry that I could not answer these questions. Yes, one question I had here is in the chat box is difference between echinacea and Staphylococcus aureus, and that's very interesting. See, I think I can answer it in an adult's perspective. Echinacea and Staphylococcus aureus, even if it is in adult and Staphylococcus aureus, see, echinacea and Staphylococcus aureus react differently to the grief. React differently means most probably echinacea is from disappointment of love. Of course, the disappointment of love or any type of things can be there in Staphylococcus aureus. The basic Staphylococcus aureus problem is suppression. Whereas in echinacea, it is a disappointment. And the disappointment will manifest as in a slightly different way. In echinacea, what happens is they will feel great heaviness in the chest. And then there is great sensation of a lump in the throat that it is about to burst. And the reaction that is coming out from echinacea is type of hysterical one. And in Staphylococcus aureus, we cannot come across this type of great heaviness in the throat or the great heaviness in the chest or great lumps feeling in the throat. Instead, Staphylococcus aureus will swallow their indignation very peacefully. You won't recognize actually the amount of or depth of the grief that you are in. that he or she is in. And after some time, after this suffering for a lot, and one particular moment, this particular fellow can break down. And break down, that irritability will come out. That is why Staphylococcus aureus is listed in anger remedies also. Nux vomica, chamomilla, and Staphylococcus aureus. These are the three trios for irritability or anger remedies, right? So normally Staphylococcus aureus has anger, but it is kept inside. And one particular moment, after all these sufferings, there will reach a break point when Staphylococcus aureus breaks open. And it is characteristically manifested as throwing. They will throw the things, but there again there is a peculiarity. Staphylococcus aureus will never throw it to the opposite person, wherein hysteria, ignatia can harm. Normally they won't, they will suddenly swallow their indignation and their grief, and they will end speechless. There won't be any response. They won't cry. See, in instances where one can't cry, think about ignatia. If it is an acute state, it is ignatia. If it is a really chronic state, it could be an atraumauriaticum also. And again, there are some differentiating points from ignatia and Staphy. Of course, there is the desire part. Aversion to fruits, if it is something recent, it is ignatia. And great sensitivity to tobacco, that is ignatia. Tobacco smell. This won't be there in Staphylococcus aureus. So the next question, I think,
sir,
yes, go on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One more question from Dr. Preeti Shukla, sir. She's asking, LICO is also precocious. So what is the difference between veratrum album and LICO being precocious, sir?
Lycopodium being precocious. Okay, good question. Lycopodium are intellectuals. Yes, intellectual, but it is a normal type of intellectual development. It is not as precocious as veratrum album is. The veratrum, if you take the precocity, see, I have told you that they are very intelligent and intelligent in a peculiar manner that they could manipulate anything. They can tell lies. Or that is very convincingly. That type of precocity, that intensity of precocity won't be there in Lycopodium. Instead, Lycopodiums are greatly cowardized. That means though they are intellectually precocious, that means they are intelligent, they can learn things very easily. That is a straightforward type of learning. They don't have that thing to be done in a crooked way. Instead, they are fearful. If someone is there to actually pick them up, they will lose this tendency to tell lie if anything is there. But in veratrum, they will manage that thing very well. You won't be able to know.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for patiently answering the info. On behalf of IHME, I convey heartfelt thanks to Dr. Vinod Joseph, sir, for joining us today and sharing us rich knowledge on homeopathic remedy, differential in pediatrics. I thank IHMA Chennai chapter for giving me this opportunity. Let us all join back together for the exclusive add-on summer webinar session today at 7 p.m. by Dr. Peter Martin, sir, on COVID-19 acute homeopathic management. I also request you all to join our third session of this lockdown learning webinar English series on 23rd May 2021, next Sunday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. by Dr. Ravi Doctor on life-saving supporting homeopathic management in COVID-19. Now I request Dr. Ashok Kumar, sir, Secretary, IHMA Chennai chapter, to deliver his vote of thanks. Sir, please.
Good evening, all the doctors gathered here. It was a wonderful session by Dr. Vinod Joseph, sir. And it was a very patient and deep hearing of medicinal differentiations. And sir, I would have to add one more doubt, sir, because there was a question raised about autism and your view on that ADHD and autism. If you can give a 1 or 2 minutes kind of a gist of that.
No issues. Actually, my opinion regarding ADHD and autism, or how to manage, or to what extent we could manage. Is that the question?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, yeah. See, ADHD we can manage well. Autism, it is tougher, depending on the time of intervention. If we come across autistic children in a very younger age, that means in 3 years of age, 4 years of age, 5 years, where the symptoms are starting to settling only, we could do wonders. We could do wonders. I have some children who are actually doing very well, because we could start the homeopathic remedies right from the younger age. But I have cases in autistic spectrum who started the remedies after, say, 14, 15, and 16. And then what I could manage is, I could reduce, or with homeopathic medicines, we could reduce the aggressiveness, the sleeplessness, and improve the cognitive skills. But still, it is very much in the autistic spectrum itself. That means that in between there, the whole calmness will go, and the language is not there, the communication is not there, and though he is settled emotionally, and the parents are very much happy when compared to the allopathic days of a lot of chemical medicines we are giving, and that situation we can abort. So I think the management depends on the intensity of the spectrum, and secondly, the age of intervention. If we could get a good intervention, in the correct intervention in a younger age, it is very effective. I would like to share one experience more, if the time permits. Recently, I have an autistic child case from Chennai itself, and on taking the case, see, this is one experience, and we would usually go for peculiar symptoms in the case, right? Peculiar characteristic symptoms in a homeopathic case. So while taking the case, one characteristic I noticed in that particular case was desire for sour things, desire for really sour things. And based on that, I prescribed Veratrum without any effect. And actually, I got one peculiar, and these parents were keeping on mentioning about that particular thing. He was not actually letting the elder one. This is an 18-year-old boy, and his younger brother, who is 16-year-old. They are two brothers, and he was not letting the younger brother to move out of the house. Not in the house, from his room. Only the problem was with his brother. His parents were okay, they can move, but this particular behavior that the parents were mentioning right from the beginning itself. But I was not that much keen into that. I think I made a mistake, and I prescribed Veratrum, and it didn't produce much an effect. But then later on, when I started to differentiate the other remedies with desire for sour and ripe fruits, the other remedies are Medorinum and Calcarea sulfurica. See, the Calcarea sulfurica, there is a great issue of ego. That means they are really it is a great remedy for sibling rivalry. Okay, so actually, what was his gesture? Though he was speechless, he was not communicating, I could not make it out. So it was actually a great jealousy from his part towards his younger brother, that he is enjoying his life. That means he is going out and he's play. In fact, he is not actually in a position to go out, or he is not allowed. So the other person should also not go out. So that made me prescribe Calcarea sulfurica, and after that there is a tremendous change in that case, and that I would like to share also. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I thank all my Chennai team members for their efforts on this Zoom session. As this is new to us, and we had many flaws in the stats, but hopefully we are doing well, and we will continue in a better way and in a better form in upcoming sessions too. So thank you all, and we will join again in our evening session for the Tamil. Probably by 7 to 9, we will be starting the sessions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.